Here we are again.
So this time it's a little different. We're always separate. We're never together, but this time I'm in Europe instead of Tokyo.
Yeah, you're in Frankfurt, and I'm still in Toronto. Although I'll be in Montreal next week.
I'll be in London, a London-Montreal podcast.
Nice. Let's do it.
I'll start by saying that when I told people I was coming to Frankfurt and was going to spend a weekend here, I had a lot of reaction.
Why? Because Frankfurt is not the epicenter of Germany, or?
Yeah, it's a very financial place. It's not known, it's not a Munich or a Berlin. It doesn't quite have that character, that edge to it that you associate Germany with, those two major cities. So I was a little bit, for me, I've never been here before, so I said to myself, hey, I could go to London for the weekend, or I could be in Frankfurt for the weekend, because my next trip is on Sunday night. I fly to London because I have to be there for next week. And I thought, I could go to London. Not to say I've exhausted London. I've only been there twice before.
I love London. London's a great city. It's one of my favorite cities in the world.
No, it's a great spot. But I thought, hey, you know what? I'm in Germany. I've never been to Germany before, other than to fly through Frankfurt Airport. And I thought, hey, you know what? I'm gonna just stay in Frankfurt for the weekend. Yeah. And the early impressions were not good. I mean, my hotel is in this kind of weird area. It's it's surrounded by a lot of 5-6 story buildings filled with German companies, and it's just in a very in our office we're about a 10-minute walk from the hotel, so it's very convenient from that perspective. But our office is also in this there's no character whatsoever.
No museums, no bars, no
bars, no restaurants. And if there are any, restaurants are it's not like you walk out onto a street with people everywhere and options.
Right.
You just walk out and you're like, gosh, if I wanted to find a convenience store even, I don't know where I would go. It'd probably be a 15-minute walk to a convenience store.
Okay.
So today I had the chance to go around and kind of explore Frankfurt a bit. I took the advice of my wife, who said, you know what, look up those on the internet. They usually have really good things like 1-day itineraries or 2-day itineraries for cities. And so she actually looked a couple of things up for me, sent me a link. And I have to say that was actually really good advice, because I didn't start at the first thing on the itinerary, but I sort of made it kind of a goal to go to. It's this thing called the Iron Bridge, and it crosses the river. And it was
Aren't
a nice.
all bridges iron?
Well, this one's an iron. There's no concrete. It's literally all metal.
Okay, I understand.
So there's probably iron. There's iron in most. I'm sure there's iron in all bridges, but this literally is an iron. If you look at it, you say, oh, that's made of iron.
Right. Okay. Fair enough.
So from the hotel, I walked from the hotel to this area, and it was neat. I saw part of Frankfurt. If I had only stayed in this hotel and had the experience at the office and maybe just walked around this area, I would have totally missed out on what Frankfurt is and what it's all about. So I was really happy to do that.
Nice. Did you take some pictures?
I did. Yeah. So I had this idea that I was maybe going to do a little vlogging on this trip while I'm in Frankfurt. And so I did a couple spots where I stopped and I, did talk to the camera about, where I was and what my initial impressions were and then what my goals were and my aim. And yeah, I took a lot of photos. I took a lot of photos and a lot of little 10-second videos of things, like a pan of a building. Nice. or a street scene, just to kind of get a feel so that I could connect it into a video eventually. And it got me thinking about when I take photos now, I don't know I don't think it's always been this way. I feel like this is relatively new in the age of smartphones and social media, that as I was taking video of these street scenes with people walking around, I felt this sudden feeling like I was invading people's privacy.
Interesting.
in a different way than I might have with if it had just been a camera.
Like if you rewound the clock and took pictures in 1975 versus 2019.
Or if I just had a point and shoot camera, just taking a shot of something is a different thing than when you hold up like your phone, right? You know, and you're like, you've got it like you're doing this, and people know they're in it. And I have this feeling, and I wanted to see what you thought. Like if you see someone taking video or pictures with their phone and you happen to kind of walk into their scene, do you feel differently about it today than you might have when it was just like a point and shoot camera or film camera?
I don't, but I don't know. I typically try to stay out of people's pictures. If someone's taking a picture, I'll try to deke in behind them rather than, pass in front or behind the sort of in anywhere within the view of the picture being taken. I try to stay away from, more as a way of being polite,
right?
Not because I'm
courtesy, not because you don't want to be in the picture.
Exactly. So, but if I happen to be in someone's shot, they don't know who I am, and I've got nothing to hide. I'm not doing anything, so I don't really care. It doesn't matter to me.
Well, there was that aspect of it, but then the other thought I had was, over our lifespans, I wonder how many photos we appear in like strangers' photo albums of like tourist shots where, you're the guy in the very back that's just walking through. Like, imagine if you could get the photos of every time you ever appeared in someone's photo.
Yep.
I'd be interested to know it would be so weird.
It would be, yeah, like some family from BC, right? And you guys crossed paths in Mexico or something on some vacation, and they're like, "Who's that guy with the hat on the sun lounger?" And that's you, right? But they don't know,
or they don't even really think about it,
right? They would just think you're just
that's you. That's a person with a life. That's you, right? And they're looking at the picture of their family of 4 on vacation, and then there's this guy behind them that happens to be you, that's got this life that you intersected for a brief moment. And what are they doing now? What are you doing now? I don't know. It just,
but it
just got me thinking.
But here's the thing about that, because years ago you would take a picture, you would, if it was an older style camera, you would take the film out of the camera. You would go to a developer store, whatever, Blacks, and they would develop the film. You'd go back 2 days later or whatever it was, pick up all your things, stick them in an album, and then maybe you'd look at them 2 times, right? And then that would be the end of that. They would sit in an album for forever until someone decided to go through them again and then go, "Oh my gosh, remember how young we were?" or something like that, right? The great thing about those photos is that they sit on a shelf and nobody knows. And if you've done something crazy, because I know for a fact there are pictures of me that are not great, and they're in uncompromising situations, right? But they're locked away in someone's photo album, probably never to be seen again, right? But people don't do that anymore, right? So when you make mistakes and you're...
But whose photo albums? Like strangers?
No,
or
friends.
People you
or
know?
Friends and strangers, but mostly friends. Or people that maybe you aren't super close with, but they may have got a picture or 2 of you, guzzling beer out of a beer bong or, funnels or something like that. And you're doing something that's in itself is not so bad, but say there's something inappropriate happening around the same time, like you've got no clothes on or something crazy like that. It was a wild night in Mexico or spring break or whatever, right? That stuff goes into someone's album and stays there forever, right? That mistake is sealed, and 3 people know about it. And all of the people that were there, but they don't have a picture of it, so it's in their head, and they can't, which they've probably forgotten because it happened 25 years ago or whatever, right?
Right.
Now, those pictures get put on Facebook or Instagram or whatever other social media, and they're there forever. There's something to be said about the fact that when you and I grew up, we could make a mistake and nobody knew about it, right? Now you make a mistake, everybody knows about it, And we live in a very unforgiving world, and a world that likes to rehash stuff and not let you forget. I don't know. I forget why I started talking about this. I guess because there's the safety in. Well, you started saying, does it matter to you whether you're in a picture of a stranger? It doesn't. But if it was something where there was a mistake that I had made, right? Some stupid decision. I think it would bother me if I knew I was in someone else's picture, in case something like that got out.
Yeah, I mean, it's something to think about. It can come down. I've often thought, like when you see these types of these YouTube videos that end up online of even just two people getting into a disagreement at a store or in a public place, and then all of a sudden, like cameras just start, because everyone's got a camera in their hands these days, right?
I think it's a bit disgusting, actually.
It is, and you could argue that on one hand, maybe it keeps people to a certain degree more honest. But most of the time, people forget. So the stuff you see where it ends up being some disagreement, a lot of these people get in their heads. They don't care what's going on around them. They're just so caught up in the moment. I saw some scene that was 6 or 7 months ago, where in Toronto, some guy was spouting off at some people, foreigners, or saying like, this is my province. What are you doing here? And like was being very threatening, and it was like with a family of people, and it was really
unacceptable,
very disturbing. And you have to think that the guy was probably loaded and out of his skull drinking, and here he is making a fool of himself. He ends up on cable news, basically, because someone took the video and sent it to CTV or Global News or whatever. And then of course it ended up on YouTube. This is a whole topic in of itself. Like,
yeah, it's true. Yep.
And also there's the whole vigilante justice thing as well, or social media justice. I was recently. It was brought to my attention about this person that threw this chair off the balcony onto the gardener.
Yeah.
I heard about that, so I kind of checked it out, and I don't know, like you watch all these comments. It reminded me a bit of the guy that threw the beer can on the field during the baseball.
Yes.
The ALCS the American League wild card
a few years ago. Yeah.
I was at that game actually, and I remember, the beer went on the field, and people were like, "Oh my God, he almost hit the player in right field or left field." I guess it was.
It was one of the Texas Rangers, I think, or something, wasn't it? Was it Texas they were playing?
I think it was Baltimore.
That's right. It was Baltimore. Yeah.
It was a Korean player that was almost hit. I believe he was Korean. It was a big deal, and then over like a 4 or 5 day period, you saw just social media justice took over. The police were using social media as justice by saying, we're close to finding, they were tweeting it, we're close to finding you, turn yourself in now, we have a pretty good idea who you are.
They did the same thing with this girl, by the way, that threw the chair off the,
Yeah. So did they end up catching her?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did catch her. She apparently...
So I guess to recap, what did she do? Let's
what happened was it's unclear, but I believe it was a situation where she was renting through Airbnb a condo. She was staying in Toronto, and I don't know how many days she was here, but I guess after a night of drinking, they decided to launch some chairs off. And the thing about the condos where she is staying, they're very, very tight. They're close to the Gardiner Expressway, which is a major highway that runs through the middle of, right through the bottom part of Toronto. And you're also up really high. So, you launch a chair off there, and it can sail. And this is a plastic chair. I think it was a plastic folding chair. And there was more than one chair launched. And then
was there? I thought it was just one chair.
There's some question as to whether there were other items as well. The real danger is that, it could land on a car, it could land in front of a car, it could land on a car windshield. The automatic reaction of the driver would be slam on their brakes. That could cause a serious accident in the Gardiner because it's heavily traveled. And people could die. I mean, let's be honest. So it's a terrible, terrible decision by her. then there's some question of whether or not she was egged on. Was it peer pressure? Okay, fine. Everybody knows that peer pressure can influence you to do something, but we all have that filter that says, you know what? This is a really bad decision. You do it, I'm out, right? Like, no one's going to pressure me into doing something that is potentially life-threatening to someone else just for kicks, right? Anyway, they did. The police did a major investigation. They did find her. I don't know if she turned herself in or if they caught her, but then she went to court. She was released on bail, and I guess the problem is she didn't really seem to show much remorse. She was seen smiling as she was leaving the courtroom, and of course, even before this, right? You would go on social media and people were just roasting her, like, well, this douchebag throwing stuff up, there was nobody, not one person said, well, that's a great idea. Like, I mean, because that's a stupid idea. It was an utterly ridiculous idea. So then, of course, after she leaves the courtroom smiling, right, and it just continued, and unfortunately for her, it's going to be something that follows her around for a while. Mm-hmm. Will it ruin her life? I don't know. Who knows? There's so many things that can happen in the next 5 years that could completely eclipse what she's done. Stupid idea. But that's the kind of thing 25, 30 years ago. Someone snaps a Polaroid of that. Nobody gets caught. And
hopefully nobody gets hurt. I mean, nobody got
hurt this time.
Nobody got hurt in both.
Yeah, if you just rewound the clock like 30 years, no one got hurt. Somebody snapped a Polaroid. It went into someone's photo album, and maybe 2 days later, she's like, "Oh my gosh, what was I thinking? That was the stupidest idea. Why did you let me do that?" Come down on her own friends, and the mistakes that we made as kids or teens, or even in our early 20s, the stupid decisions that we made were never captured. Or they were captured, but they're hidden, right? They're in someone's photo album, forever locked away. You can't make mistakes like that now.
No,
right?
No.
And how do we know that this could have just been a really nice, smart, intelligent person that was boozing it up? Stupid decisions get made. We've all made stupid decisions after we've had too many drinks. How do we know that 2 days later, she wasn't like, what the heck did I do? Except that, unfortunately, she was caught smiling, leaving the courtroom. But
yeah, I think there's more to this person. Just looking at it here now, her doing the video, I've actually not given it the I've purposely not watched it just to not give it the.
Yeah, I didn't watch it either.
the
I looked at the
support,
story, but that's it.
And yeah, she's saying a woman who looks to be in her mid-20s is seen gleefully throwing a wooden chair off her balcony while the person filming follows it as it spirals down onto the populated expressway. Yeah. The video seemed to be shared via Snapchat with the caption, "Good morning." So it's not like she was caught doing this. That's the other aspect.
It was premeditated for sure.
She did it, recorded herself doing it, and published it herself. So that's when it's
stupid,
really disturbing. Anyway,
I'm looking at that iron footbridge, by the way, in Frankfurt. It looks pretty cool.
Oh yeah,
it looks pretty cool.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice. I mean, it's not a massive bridge. It wasn't massively crowded. One thing that I read today is that I'm actually here in Frankfurt at a very good time of year. It's before the crowds. Apparently, late spring it can get quite crowded, and the summertime can get quite crowded. So Frankfurt's actually more of a draw than I thought it was.
It looks really pretty.
Tourists.
I'm looking at pictures right now. It looks really nice.
Yeah, you'll be able to look at my pretty photos after as well.
No, I won't. I don't have social media.
Ah, good. Yes, we talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
That I've actually myself. I've decided that I'm pulling back significantly on social media. I peek at Facebook now and then, just maybe once or twice a week, but I'm no longer posting things like checking into airports and going to different places.
I stopped.
I'm not checking in. I'm not checking into restaurants. Like today, I thought about it when I was sitting at the restaurant, because part of me was, I'm archiving my life. Like I like getting those memories. Like, hey, 2 years ago you were in Frankfurt, and
right.
It's kind of nice. But then I'm thinking, well, okay, that's a benefit, but what was the cost? What's the cost of it? Paying attention to social media all the time and waiting for reactions is, I think, a cost. And is it worth it to see the amount of attention you pay to it, that it takes you from other things and the things that you can get drawn into Facebook and social media that, from a few standpoints. Number one, you can get on rabbit trails where it starts with checking a quick thing, and the next thing you know, you're like reading down comments and comments and comments and starting to get, you see some stories that can get negative and draw you in, and there's drama, and it's like, why do I need this?
Yeah, I hear you.
But I'll share it in my photo album. I'm going to make a photo album, and I'll bring it over to your house, and you can or a slideshow, and I'll show my vacation on a slideshow in your basement.
I'm fine with that. Bring it on,
like the old days.
Bring it on. All right, what's next?
Well, as I was sitting on this cafe on the bank of the Main River, it may be pronounced differently, but it's spelled Main, the Main River in Frankfurt. As I was waiting for my server to come by and so I could order another drink, I started thinking, I wonder how long the service industry has, or the people that are waiters or in the service industry serving food and taking drink orders and delivering drinks. I wonder what their shelf life is in this day and age. I don't think there's been a lot of talk about it. I think we've gone through scenarios or been in situations where we've seen the replacement of servers. Like if you go to the airport, you can order food from a little iPad on your computer, and then someone comes over, brings your food, and then you pay by credit card and do it all through the iPad. But it's not really become really a ubiquitous thing. It's in certain places you see it. So I had a think to myself about it, and I thought, I wonder how long it really is before in most restaurants you're going to no longer have a person come to you that you've been waiting for 4 or 5 minutes to show up at your table and say, hello, how are you? What do you feel like drinking tonight? Or would you like something to drink? Would you like a food menu? The usual pleasantries that go on. Oh, can you recommend something? Oh, I recommend like how far are we away from digitalization taking all of that over? And how much do we want that to happen or not want that to happen?
Okay. I'm going to say that recently, and I've done this several times, I've been to several restaurants like this, but recently we went to a sushi restaurant, and this sushi restaurant had iPads at the table. And you scroll through the menu on the iPad, you select which items you want brought out to you, and someone, a physical person, brings it out to your table. But in terms of taking an order, they don't have that. Like it's not a physical person. It's done on the. Now there is a button on the iPad that says, do you want to request, assistance of any kind, and then someone would come. And there's still somebody there. They still have to bring you the food. They still have to bring you your drinks. And when they come to the table, they will ask you, do you have everything you need? Can I get you anything else? So there's that element of human being interaction, but it is definitely taking away from the standard general wait staff, right? The nature of wait staff is changing. So I don't think that wait staff will ever disappear, but I don't think it's going to stay the way it is now. I think it's going to gradually shift towards ordering via iPad, or maybe it'll just be embedded right in the table, and who knows, in the future, maybe it'll be a virtual iPad. It'll just be there and you'll just in the air, I don't know. Who knows? That's light years from where we are right now. But I think you'll always have a human interaction of some kind because you have to. There's something about hands, actual physical hands, unless you're going to have robots replace people. But they would still have to come too.
Sure. I think my thing was less about total automation, like ordering the food and then it comes to you on a conveyor belt. I was not thinking that so much, which I could eventually maybe be the case. But my thought was, okay, look at all the different elements that can be replaced by automation or by by computer or digitalization. The actual need to order or the ordering of the food can be completely done in a digital manner if you have the tools. If you, like you said, the iPad example, even recommendations. Like if you think of the different things you interact with your server about, one of them will be like, can you recommend what's an appetizer you would recommend?
Right.
And you rely on this person's opinion or
what's your favorite
taste.
dish? Yeah.
Right. Like, and we don't know if our tastes are even remotely similar.
Yeah.
She or he might have completely different tastes than we do, but we rely on it and we take some credence when they say, oh, I really like the calamari. So we're like, okay, let's order the calamari. But what if you could have it all digitalized that what as a part of food ordering is, let's say you look up most recommended dishes based on client review.
But I think they have that.
Customer review.
I think they have that. So this
sure.
sushi restaurant that we go to, they have the most popular dishes. So there are several different things that you can order, obviously. You can order by the menu individually. You can order sort of like dinners for two, right? And they have different types of combinations of sushi bits that are, that the restaurant has as part of their mainstay, and then you've got most popular items, right? You can choose that. So that's exactly what you're talking about.
I think that industry, it's had a lot less airtime than the Airbnbs of the world, the Ubers of the world, the even self-driving cars, autonomous driving. I think virtual waiters or that aspect of digitalizing the whole going to the restaurant experience, I think has not really been as well advertised, but I do believe that it is ripe for disruption.
I would tend to agree.
If you think about if you own one of these establishments, that instead of hiring 5 people, you could maybe you only need to hire 2 people, really just someone to run that food out and deal with live interactions 100%. When they're necessary.
Think of the overhead you could save.
Tipping. There would be no need to tip based on this type of a situation because it's all being, tipping in itself is a conversation, and whether or not people believe in tipping. In Asia, tipping doesn't happen. It's a very North American type of custom.
It doesn't happen in Ireland either.
Yeah, in Europe, like I was at a restaurant a couple days ago in Dusseldorf, and the bill came. I paid it, and I'm so used to in Asia, there is no tip. It's just not. You get the bill, you pay it, you go. And so I got this bill, I paid it, and then about 5 minutes later, it kind of came to me. Oh, maybe I should have put some sort of a gratuity on that. And so I asked my colleague, I said, so like, what's the tipping custom in Germany or in, here? Like, he says, maybe 5% you could add to the bill. I said, what about 0%?
That's so
He's like,
funny.
No, probably 5 is kind of the minimum. And I'm like, okay.
5?
Thinking, of course. 5
insane.
to 10, I think he said.
That's there.
That's more of the common practice would be to give 5 or 10%.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Like here, it's I think standard now is 18%.
Yeah.
And so I actually have a tipping rule, just if I can interject for 1 second. If you give standard, everyday kind of decent service, right, then you're getting an 18% tip. If you are going through the motions, then you get a 15% tip. That's my rule. And if you're exceptional, or if there's some kind of a real good connection between us and the waitstaff that's looking after us, you get a 20% tip. That's insane to me, though, that we have to. Why can't they just include the gratuity in the cost? I don't really want to tip. I would just much rather pay the bill and there we go. Sometimes I have to think about it. I hate thinking about it.
That's right. In Singapore, they put 10% automatically on every bill, so there is no discussion about adding tip. No one expects it. It's just built into it. In Japan, It is just, the bill is the bill. And there might be a service charge if you have a large group, but there is no, if you and your wife, or even your wife and 2 kids, go to a restaurant, when you get the bill at the end of the day or at the end of the night, the bill is the bill. You pay it. Nobody thinks twice about it, and off you go. And you have to think 2 things. I think food is slightly cheaper in Asia for the most part. And then when you add in the fact that you're not actually tipping, or if it may be in some restaurants, if it is expensive, but you're not paying that. Like if you go out and have a really nice dinner with your wife, and let's say it's $100 a person, it's a $200 bill. Well, it would be $220 in North America, or $225 maybe, versus in Asia that bill would be just the bill, $200. So it's another 20% cheaper, which can add up 20% every time you go out for dinner. And I think it encourages people maybe a little more, that they don't have to. Maybe you even eat out more, knowing that you're not having to pay this 20% on top of every time you go out.
It's insane.
For dinner.
I think, yeah. Well, that's I guess that's the price of living in North America, right? So
yeah, and I think tipping, I've really seen it just in my travels, how the whole tipping culture has created a lot of customer service problems rather than solutions. With an expectation of a tip, you start to see people only behaving when they know they will get something.
Yeah. How many times have you seen or heard waitstaff complaining about how someone gave them an under what would be expected tip, right? Or somebody complaining online where they'll take a picture of some guy who wrote a note like, I didn't want to tip you because you gave crappy service. And then they Instagram it and everybody's like, oh, this guy sucks. And they, the court of public opinion is like, the guy that didn't tip sucks. Well, how do you know that waitstaff didn't suck? Right?
Yeah. Why isn't the court of public opinion that, geez, you must suck at your job?
Yeah, that's right.
Why are you posting this? Like, you should be embarrassed.
And the crazy part is, we've all had somebody wait on us that was terrible. They should never have been a waiter. They were terrible at it. They didn't care. They had that attitude. They clearly didn't want to be there or want to do their job.
Yep.
And what did we do? Well, we tipped them, right? Yep. But really, I mean, tipping should be. It shouldn't be mandatory. It should be something that you earn. I mean, you're getting paid. You're there. You're getting paid a minimum amount. Yes, I understand that. But the tip is to sort of compensate for the fact that, you know what, I'm damn good at my job, and I'm going to show you how good I am at my job, and you're going to reward me, hopefully. Now, are you going to hit a home run on every reward? No, of course not. Nobody's wired that way. But it should be a reward versus an expected amount. And too many waitstaff expect it. But that's our society. We've built it that way.
But the society has also been created by the fact that I don't know currently what servers make per hour, but traditionally, and I used to be in the business because I was at one time a server, is that traditionally servers were paid less than minimum wage because they knew that tips would compensate for that gap, and usually overly compensate for that gap. So if way back when, say 20 years ago when I was, or 25 years ago probably now, when I was serving in restaurants, I probably made $5 an hour or $6 an hour.
Right.
And minimum wage was maybe $7 an hour, but my tips easily made up for that gap. And not to mention the fact that a lot of that could be even, it's not officially recorded, so you're not being taxed on it the same way as wage. But you have to wonder, I've only heard it once said to me in Japan when we were out for drinks one night, was one of the clients I was with, he said, we were actually having some pretty bad service. And he said, see, this is one of the problems with not having a tipping culture, is that the waiters aren't incentivized to do a good job.
See. It's got both sides for sure. Yep.
But I would say it's an exception to the norm to see bad service in Asia, particularly in Japan. This was, first of all, the person that was giving us the bad service was not a Japanese person. He was from somewhere else. and probably had at one time in his life worked in an environment with tipping. So he was just personally kind of just someone who provided bad service, and he was surly.
Surly. There's a word you don't
Surly.
hear very often. Yep.
Well, I've had a couple of surly interactions. I will describe most taxi drivers in Europe as surly.
I would say that most taxi drivers, period, can be surly. It's the
Except in Japan.
odd occasion when you get somebody who's
Yes.
very nice. Yeah.
And so I had a couple days ago, I needed to take the taxi to the train station here. And when I got in, and some of it may be language barrier, but I came in, and got into the taxi, and I said, because I had to go back to the old ways where now you can pretty much take a taxi in Toronto and be assured, or with Uber, you never even have to exchange cash anymore. Most times, all the taxis take credit card, whereas 10 years ago, say in Toronto, you had to ask, or you could never be sure if they would take it, or they would get really, if it wasn't like over a certain amount, like if it was a short ride, like $10 or $8, they would definitely not want to take a credit card for a small transaction, but they might take it on a large transaction. But I've had a few cases in Europe where there's this whole to-do about the fact that I want to pay by credit card. I think that's largely gone away in places like Toronto. In Japan, I think 99% of the time they'll take a credit card. It's just part of the deal. But when I went to the other day to the train station, I asked, do you take credit card? He said yes. We drove, got to the station. The bill was only like 8 or 9 euros. And I took my credit card out, and he said, you should have asked me before about whether I take credit cards or not. And I said, I did ask you. And he says, no, you didn't. And I'm like, I'm not getting into an argument. I'm paying by credit card is what I'm thinking. I didn't say it out loud, but I just said, I said it to you. And then I left it at that. He does the whole song and dance of reaching under the seat and getting the terminal out and playing around with it. And I had the same situation in Italy once where this guy, he was really belligerent he drove me from the airport or from the city into the airport. It was a significant distance, so it was probably 80 euros maybe for the ride. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I got the whole song and dance about like the fact that I wanted to pay by credit card. And I'm like, I don't have 100 euros on me here. The only option, my friend, is me paying by credit card, or you're not getting paid.
Yeah.
And it's just funny when it comes to that. He said, I don't take credit card. I said, well, I don't have any other method of payment. He's like, well, I don't take credit card.
Well,
okay.
Then I guess you don't get paid.
And after some humming and hawing and some sighs, he reaches under his seat, pulls out a terminal. He gets his SIM card. He had to pull it out of his phone and put it into his little terminal. And guess what? I paid by credit card.
Yeah, that's lackluster service right there. And that's surly. That is a surly cab driver.
Surly.
So I've had similar things. I landed in Montreal, and I had to get a cab from Montreal to the office that I was going to, which was, I mean, literally, if someone had picked me up, it's a 5-minute drive. How much do you think a 5-minute cab fare would take? Like if they really did it by the letter of the law. So you get in, they push the button, cab, whatever it costs to get in.
There's always a minimum.
Yeah, the minimum
like
is
$3 or $4,
$5 or $6 or whatever it is, just to sit in the cab. Right. Driving for 5 minutes, in your head, how much do you think it would cost?
I say it goes from whatever the minimum is. Let's say it was $5. It should go to like $7.
Yeah,
or $7.50.
Let's call it 10, right?
Sure.
Let's call it 10.
Right.
I got in the cab. I said, I need to go to this address. And I guess he didn't know where it was. So he put he took out his phone and did the GPS, right? The Google Maps. Finds out where the address is and goes, stops the cab fare button, starts to drive and goes, it'll be $20. I'm like,
it's like a flat
unbelievable. Rate. So you know what I did?
That is totally not allowed.
Yeah. And so I said, that's fine. I'm paying by credit card anyway. And then, so it was like a double smash. Like he tried to smash me, but I smashed him back. So I was like, screw you, man.
Yeah.
Do your job. You're going to be back here in 5 minutes anyway, picking up another fare that might cost you $50. So, you're not missing anything. You're working for 8 or 10 or 12 hours. Just take the fare.
The thing that amazes me is that in this day and age, people can't, and maybe they just don't think about this. A cab driver cannot afford any other reasons for a customer to decide not to use them, because with Uber,
Lyft,
Uber was Lyft. They were one of the best disruptors of an industry that was in serious distress, and that's the best disruptor when you have something where the service is on average a 4 to 5 out of 10, and something can come in and take care of all the aspects of the payment, which is always a component of the friction when it comes to being in a taxi. Just even reaching into your wallet, getting money out, handing it to a driver, waiting for cash. The Ubers and the Lyfts, those platforms have completely. I love that I can go to a foreign city where I don't necessarily need to get foreign currency like I used to have to do, because it can all just get taken care of in the app, and you can print it out at work at the end of the month and put your expense report in. So for any industry that is on edge, like something like the cab or taxi industry, those guys are foolish to be anything but trying to provide the best, unless they know the gig is up anyway, and they've just kind of said, screw it, I'm gonna ride this through until it's over, and I'm not gonna go out quietly.
Speaking of the gig is up, how many times have you heard somebody say, because we were talking recently on a previous podcast about people that say things incorrectly.
Yes.
How many times have you heard people say the jig is up? I
probably have heard it.
I heard it recently.
Did you?
Yeah. And it actually caused me to question for 1 second, like, is it jig? Have I been saying it wrong all this time? But I thought it was gig. Maybe I'm wrong.
Did you look it up?
No, I didn't look it up.
We'll have to look it up.
Yeah.
Well, it's like the one we debated the last time we did have this conversation.
That's right. What was that one?
You've got another. That's right. You've got another think coming.
That one to me does not make sense at all. That is just that's not.
I think that one has naturally.
I understand the point, though. Yeah.
Yeah. If it ever was, you have another think coming, which let's assume it was how it originated. It's pretty much assumed by the rest of society that's moved on that it is another. If you've got another thing coming.